So today we have a special session. Welcome to this very special edition on the IT ecosystem in Malaysia. So as we already mentioned on the event page, right, the Internet of Things (IoT) in Malaysia has been steadily growing, and it's a crucial component to our push towards IR 4.0. And we strongly believe that Malaysia has what it takes to become a regional leader in the IoT space. And we've also been part of this ecosystem. A few years ago, JomHack introduced LoRa technology to our tech community through our hackathons. We did two hackathons on IoT. That was called Smart Cities with LoRa and JomHack Penang. And this was done in collaboration with MDEC. And that was actually that's actually how JomHack was born. And so that's how we started with IoT, and then we went on to do all kinds of other hackathons. But we always had an IoT element in many of our hackathons, where because we want makers to come and build really cool stuff. But today we want to talk about the ecosystem in general, and for that, we will be talking to two IoT experts in Malaysia, because Dr. Mazlan Abbas and Mr. Mu Padma, and we want to know what they think about the ecosystem and maybe share some knowledge and their experience. So I will bring them into the stream right now. Hi, Dr. Mazlan. Hi, Mr.
Hi.
Mu.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So
Hi,
welcome
guys.
to the stream. We have some audience right now watching our chat. So let's start with the obvious thing, an introduction. Maybe we can start with Dr. Mazlan. Please introduce yourself and just give a background of what you do in the space.
Hello. My name is Mazlan Abbas. I am the CEO and also a co-founder of a startup called Favorite IoT. So we are already in the business since 2017. We have been providing solutions to help a lot of companies to embark on their IoT journey. We enable them through our IoT middleware. So we do have our own ecosystem of IoT developers, around 3,300 developers, more than 100 countries around the world. So now we are trying to engage more with the industries who are ready to, to IoTize them. That's it.
All right. And Mr. Mu?
Yes, my name is Padma. I'm representing a company called Create IoT. Here, what we do is we design IoT ecosystem from selecting the right sensors to a finished solution. That means sensors, connectivity, and also the platform. So we don't do much of the Arduinos or module kind of things. We do finished products. I have another company called Promosis Technology, which does design and development of hardware. We do the design development of sensors, IoT sensors in Malaysia. So this is what we do offer to our clients. I have office in Malaysia, Singapore, and also in India to provide IoT ecosystems.
Right. Very interesting. Thank you for the introduction. And so let's go straight into the discussion. Today, obviously, we want to talk about the ecosystem in Malaysia, and you guys definitely have a lot of nuggets to share on that. So just a general question to begin. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think the IoT sector is to Malaysia, and how do you think it can help to grow our Malaysian economy? So either one of you, who want to go first?
Dr. Mazlan is the best person.
No, I think it's not the question of how important it is, because it's already important. For me, I think IoT should be here already by now. We have been talking about IoT since 2015, and it's the question of, it's the question of, if the scale of 1 to 10, how ready are we Malaysians in the sector of IoT? So that is actually the question that we should ask. And as we know that IoT have a lot of benefits, and you name it, it can save a lot of costs. We can increase productivity. It can also create new revenue streams for people who actually design new products. For operation purposes, it can reduce a lot of errors, because now machines is taking the role of human. We can reduce leakages, a lot of things that we don't see. Now we can actually identify where are the actual leakages. We can even have better customer experience, better customer service. And it's a lot. You can see what happened during the COVID-19. Just one scenario, when what happened is that our TNB bill, right, our electricity bill, and suddenly we couldn't even get our bill for a certain number of months. And after the lockdown, we receive the bill and we are shocked with the kind of bills, and we don't know how to calculate, and it becomes a big hassle to TNB to answer all these questions to them. The main reason is that they are unable to capture the data remotely, because most of the time they need to go to the people's house and
Yeah.
get the meter reading and send the bill to you. But during that period, no one is able to even monitor that from remote. But what if you are able to monitor the remote? It can save a lot. You don't have to go to the house, and of course, it reduces all this problem of answering. It goes to a big national news just to answer this kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is the question of how and when exactly that we can implement the IoT. The question of important is no longer relevant anymore. It is important.
Right. And Mr. Mu, you have any views on that?
Yes, like what Dr. Mazlan said, we shouldn't be asking the question whether IoT is relevant or not. We were already way past that already, and I can strongly say that COVID-19 was one of the strong motivator to tell us why we need IoT and why or where we are now at IoT in Malaysia. The example was shared, TNB. By now, if everything was all the roadmaps and all the blueprints that was launched tens of years ago, it was implemented properly. During post COVID, where we had TNB problem, we shouldn't have that problem. The lack of focus that motivated us to have that kind of problem. So yes, COVID enabled us to have good reasons why we should have IoT in place.
And why do you think that is? Is that simply a mindset issue that these big companies are not, embracing IoT, or is it a cost issue? How do you see that?
I'll go first. Okay. The most common perception that was done on the realm of IoT was that from the education segment. So where people start to look at IoT as low cost devices, magic works out of the box. Things just get worked. People like you guys, where you don't do hackathons and this and that, where ideas are born at very minimum cost. But when the big companies try to implement their ideas in a more commercial, practical way, they see a lot of problems. They see a lot of costs. They see a lot of hidden costs, and it's not cheap. It's not practical to deploy it at the cost was projected in a PowerPoint. Example, when you're doing hackathon, you do with something like with an Arduino Uno, and you run it on Azure or AWS free trial. But when you go for a commercial deployment for a company like TNB, the cloud costs, the software costs, and the security element itself will become a bomb. And don't talk about the cost of the hardware, which will be totally expensive because you need to work it. The hardware need to work for 10 years reliably. So when that cost, the big companies look at that cost, they get demoted. And then beside cost, there also a lot of multi-domain people need to be involved to deploy a simpler solution like a smart meter. So when we do this on our lab, a smart meter can be cooked up in a week time. But if you want to deploy a smart meter solution nationwide, you need a multi-domain expertise, different field of people, different expertise of people needed, companies needed to deploy in a large scale. And just to top it up, that smart metering in TNB is already there for commercial billing. For industrial billing is already there for more than 6-7 years already now. Consumer billing is not there yet. So Dr. Mazlan, you want to talk about anything on that?
No, I think you are right. I think what we also need to see is that mindset is also a big issue of starting off a project. If we take a look at 5 years back, of course, a lot of us are very much unaware about what are the benefits of IoT. So we can see a lot of events going on around and just to talk about the benefits of IoT. But later we then realize that once we understand about IoT, what exactly is the thing that we need to do? I mean, what are the issues that we need to address? this is the first step which a lot of organizations fail to understand, because people like us, we can come and approach the user side, but they will come to us, what can you offer? That's not the question. It's the problem is, it's your problem. We need to identify what are your business issues that you're facing now, so that we can provide you with the right solution. So that's why in the early phase, we need to together with them to really understand if their pain point is actually to increase productivity, or to reduce cost, or to create new products that can create new revenue streams. So we need to understand in that case, then only we can start the IT journey together with them.
All right. Okay. So just to mix it up a bit, right, for the discussion. The other thing is when we talk about IR 4.0 in general, right, it's all about automation and artificial intelligence, which basically requires no humans, right? So the whole idea of automation is we are trying to get rid of the human workforce. So what are your views on this as we go more towards automation and AI, and people are going to start losing their jobs and all that, right? So how do you see that as a positive thing for the ecosystem?
Okay, let me take a look at this. Actually, it's not getting rid of the human workforce, but we should be getting rid of the tasks which we as humans shouldn't be actually doing that in the first place.
All right.
That's the thing. The things like the 3D, the dirty, dangerous, and difficult jobs which humans shouldn't do it in the first place. Remember the things that sometimes we as human is very difficult to remember. Then then the machines can take over the role of that portion, right? And jobs which is very repetitive, some things that is very boring, is something that can be automated, that can be replaced. And things like places, if you want to enter to a different place, you need robots to do that. These are the things, or the tasks, I would say, which humans shouldn't do at the first place. So now what happened is that we should be increasing the value of our jobs, instead of just doing all this manual inspection. Now with IoT, for example, IoT device can send alerts to the maintenance people, to the technical team, rather than you have to send people just to do an inspection. So that is the thing that we replace. It's not replacing totally the human force. You still need them, of course, until the day that everything is really automated, intelligent, where a robot is actually can replace you. Then maybe that is the time. But today you still need humans to do that. So this technology is actually augmenting us, or to help us in things that we can really do, or very something which is too dangerous for us to do, or something which we can as a human we can remember things and all that. So machine like this can do that repetitively.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so I have another question from one of our viewers. I think Mr. Moo can take this. What will the future of IoT look like in 5 years? How do you see it? I guess in the context of Malaysia.
Yeah, that'll be nice. If it's context of Malaysia, will be nice. Thanks to COVID, what I can see is a lot of projects related to IoT and Industrial 4.0 will be implemented aggressively in Malaysia, and a lot of local system integrators, solution developers, software developers, hardware developers will get opportunity to deliver it. So yes, I do see that my order book personally will be healthy for the next 5 years, and the whole of IoT ecosystem will be maturing very well.
Okay, so that sounds very positive. Okay, so I think this is something related to that. Based on a report I read online, right? In Malaysia, the IoT industry was expected to generate over 14,000 new jobs and contribute billions to the economy and all that by 2020. But this is, of course, done a few years ago. And but now with the COVID situation and all that, do you think there's it's hampered in any way, or are you seeing that now because there's a pressing need for automation, has this accelerated the ecosystem? How do you guys see it?
Okay, if you take a look at what COVID-19 have made us realize is that all the statistics that we have mentioned earlier before the COVID-19 about broadband penetration, internet is everywhere. And suddenly when we have this lockdown happen, we really understand there is still a gap that we need to to close the gaps. And of course, we also feel that during this period of time when we work from home, for example, people also, and have this education from home, then we realize the concept of one PC per home is not relevant anymore. You need more PCs because it's not only you alone going to access to the internet. It's your
Oh,
children,
yes.
your spouse is also going to access to the internet. So we need more PCs, more internet bandwidth for us to work seamlessly. So but the question is now, what we are facing is that having to work digitally and having online presence is actually is IR 3.0, which is just before the IoT era. I mean, the IoT world. The IoT requires you to be on internet first. That's the prerequisite. The moment you have internet, then okay, you can move towards the IR 4.0 easily. But what we are facing now is that even though this COVID-19 gives us a very good wake-up call, like Pak Ma mentioned, but most of our focus nowadays, we understand that we are still not digitally everywhere. I mean, in terms of the way that we do things, our workflow, work process, and also the database is still pen and paper a lot of times. So we need to convert that into digital information. Digitization and digitalization is very fundamental in this case, because once you have that, it's easier for you to have your machines to be on digital, to be online. That's where the condition is. So, but of course, when we face this problem, the question is, when you have this COVID-19 and businesses are impacted, some of them, maybe Pak Ma said he's not impacted, but a lot of the companies impacted too. So when you see some customers are impacted, what are the main budget that they start, try to reduce? Sometimes you will see that IT is the most common budget that they want to reduce, so that impacts. But if they don't, if they want to prioritize the IT budget, then they must prioritize their online presence first. So once you have that, then their machines is the second step. So hopefully that will be the way to go for a lot of these new companies.
All right. Okay, so for the next question, actually, there's a question from the audience which also resonates with one of my questions that I had. So I will just mix it up then. Let me see. Okay, so who can do IoT? What kind of skill sets are required, for someone to venture into the world of IoT? And the question from the floor was, what is the opportunity for IoT jobs in Malaysia, and what kind of demand is there, and what is the average salary? So I think you can just summarize that whole thing in terms of career opportunities in the IoT field. Yes,
I'll
go
go
ahead.
for it. Okay. There is no job that is called a IoT job. Just try to get that part clearly defined. I'm the guy who employ workers. So you're hearing from the horse's mouth. There's no thing called IoT position. There's no such thing.
Right.
There is a lot of elements in IoT ecosystem, from the device development, from installing the devices, identifying the devices, building the architectures, building the softwares, device management server, mobile apps, or kind of things. So if you want to involve in the era of IoT, you need to pick which element of IoT you want to be focusing on. So let's say, for example, you wanted to be a machine learning developer. So you want to do machine learning, then you want to master on it. Then you learn Python and whatever so-called needed to do that. So then you go for a company that's doing IoT that needs machine learning expert. Then you contribute into that company. Then you can talk about average salary. So if you ask for that kind of average salary for IoT, there's no such thing as IoT staff. I have IoT project engineers who deliver projects. They are not same with IoT developers who design sensors. They're not same with the IoT developers who design software for me or mobile application. So that's the question is too open to answer. So you need to define the
Yeah. But if
IoT
you look
is
at, let's say, just software developers, okay, I mean, I think most people in our JomHack community are software developers. So what type of software developers will be most suited for IoT kind of projects?
Four elements are involved in IoT software. First is the device management side, where you talk on the backend side on the TCP, UDP, Node.js, and Python scripting, where you communicate with the devices either in MQTT or HTTP, the kind of thing. So you need the kind of skill set so you can be in that position. The other one is the front end, where you do the UI, the graphs, the charts, and the maps, and all kind of things. Third is the mobile application part. The fourth is the one who actually will make money for everybody. Is the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, or kind of things, where all these data that have been collected will be massaged to produce value added. So in the different segment of the position of the employment, there are different skill sets needed. Based on your experience and your skill set, the salary can vary. Normally, it can start from 3,000 up to one of my guys is 14,000. So I can tell you that.
Right, nice. Okay, we have another question.
The guy never come to office. So
I'm still at home today.
yeah. So he's doing all the data crunching work, and he don't have to come to office.
That's nice. That's nice. Okay, so we have another question related to AI. How can AI be integrated in the upcoming future IoT products, and how cost effective can the products be if it's designed with AI in place? What do you think? Maybe Dr. Mazlan can take this. Yeah.
No, it seems like everyone wants to put AI in everything. So we need to understand also where's the intelligence going to be put in place, and where's the computing power. You know, if it's a simple sensors, a smart sensor might not be an AI type of sensors. So it depends on the application scenario. Certain scenarios you just require a very simple sensors that sends data to your cloud, and the AI will be embedded in the cloud because all the intelligence require a lot of data to be collected from various sensors before you can really make meaning of that. So AI is not in the IoT device itself, but AI should be embedded in somewhere in the cloud, where after you have aggregated all the sensors data, then you can make meaning of that data. So how cost effective can be products be designed with AI? As I mentioned just now, you need to split that understanding of where the AI should reside. You know, once the AI is resides at the central cloud, then it can be very effective, because to make a decision, you cannot have only a single source of information. It must come from various information, from a structured data and unstructured data. The unstructured data comes from all the sensors, but the structured data can comes from your IT back-end system, from social media. So you must combine that both information to make a better meaning. So that is more effective that way.
Actually, have you guys seen any very successful AI implementation in Malaysia? Because I've heard of a lot of AI-powered apps and all that. But when I look at it, I feel like there's actually no AI. You know, they just claim to have AI. But have you seen any very genuine AI implementation which has been very successful?
Really, AI? Maybe not. Maybe good.
I know, is the question based on developed by in Malaysia or AI application that's successful?
In Malaysia.
Yeah, developed by Malaysians or a successful AI application used in Malaysia?
Developed by Malaysians, maybe?
Developed by Malaysian? No, I haven't seen any. Most likely Grab having some.
Okay. Or any foreign ones then that are implemented in Malaysia?
The most effective one is the Google map routing and Waze map routing. They are using heavy AI. They purposely will ask you to take the longer route because they know at the next half an hour the peak traffic going to increase. So they are very good managing the AI. But of course, humans doesn't follow the advice that given. So that's another story.
Yeah.
And another example is that, like our Malaysians, Katsana have, you know, they use this drive mark application where they can measure the human the driver's behavior. So to understand the driver's behavior, whether you are reckless or not, whether you're a safe driver, you need to have some form of AI to really making sure that you are having this rating. So once you see your drive mark application, that rating. So it must be accurate enough to tell how your driver behavior is.
Typically, companies that collecting this AI data will integrate into their solution And third party like us, we will never know how they're integrated it, how they are making money out of it. It's same like how
Right.
Google makes money from your search criteria. So to profile you, same like that. So AI will be part of a value adding delivery like Castana, they will do it, and they will have this data which is we can't know how they're making money out of it. Quite
Right.
tricky part.
Okay. So another question that I have, which is related to the career path that we discussed earlier. Do you think our current education system, our universities and colleges, are doing enough to produce talents who can then eventually be part of this IoT ecosystem? Like you said, you need developers, you need different kind of skill sets, right, to come into this ecosystem. But do you think our local graduates, our institutions, are doing enough and producing the kind of quality that you guys would expect?
Come on, then you can answer this. I'll be the wrong person to answer.
Okay. Did you know when exactly Malaysian tried to Google the word IoT? So
I did
there
2 years
is
ago
this,
when I
there is Google Trends. If you look at Google Trends, it's meant when you Google it, you will know exactly which country Google this particular word. So in Malaysia, we started to really aggressively start to Google the word IoT is in 2014. So that's the year that actually we are trying to build up our understanding about IoT. So I was involved in when at the early days when we set up our infrastructure, our middleware, our platform, we were thinking that hey, are there Malaysians here that can build an IoT solutions using our platform? Then we found out there's none, not many, or there is really no people understand how to build an IoT solutions with this platform. So then we understand there is a gap. The universities, then I have to go back to the universities as a advisory panel. So we look into their syllabus. Then we realize that there is big gap. The syllabus are very quite old. They are not fresh. They are not in line with what the industry wants. So from that time onwards, 5 years ago, then we started to revamp, refresh, and making sure that topics like IoT will be embedded into their syllabus. So most of them will be covered in the final year, the final 2 semesters, this topic. And they can start earlier in the course. So we embedded some courses where, for example, to learn electronics, controller, all the 7 layers of SI for you to understand what IoT can go through all that layers from physical up to applications layer to ensure that there is this content to be embedded in the syllabus. But now I'm proud to say that there are certain colleges already have certificate in IoT. There are colleges also offered diploma in IoT. Now we have masters in IoT. So this is what happened after for quite some time, because I do understand there is big issues in the universities for them to making sure that the courses need to be certified and all that. They have to go through all this process, and that process can take them 1 year or more to get that approval process. But now I can see that you can see there's a lot of for example, our community, 80% of our IoT developers are from Malaysia. So meaning to say that we can see a lot of these people already in this particular space. That's good.
The talents are growing in the ecosystem.
Yes, the talents are is growing.
Okay, so something related question from the audience. So you're talking about the programming languages and framework. So our friend here is asking which is the best language framework that they can learn to have a career in the IoT ecosystem. What would you say will be the popular ones?
Like I'll go first. No, basically depend where you want to sit on the value chain or the whole of value chain of IoT. If you want to do the end devices, the sensor nodes, then C and C++ would be the ideal case. But if you want to do the middleware, the part that receive data from the devices or the API part to the third-party application, then Node.js or Python. Node.js is winning the game in commercial element, but Python also can give a good fight. But if you want to do AI and massaging a lot of data, I will still put my money on Python. So depend on where you are sitting on the value chain of IoT. they would be significant. But don't try to master all three, because you won't help you, and it won't help you, and it won't help me. As a boss, it won't help me also. So if a guy come to me, he says he can do all the things, it doesn't motivate me from hiring him. But if you come and tell me that he can build a castle with Python, then I can put my money there.
Okay, and another question: what are the security concerns when you talk about IoT? I think probably the major security concerns.
Dr. Maslan, you want to go for it, or
You can go with.
I got a long answer for this. Okay.
Summarize.
Anyway, as I said, as I said earlier, IoT is not a. It's a three-letter words. I do agree, it's a three-letter word, but it's a very complicated ecosystem. Starting from devices to platform to user experience to a lot of things. So when you talk about security, which security you're talking about? Device security or device to cloud security? The data in the cloud, or the public data that you're going to store in the cloud, or people accessing the data. So there's a lot of security elements need to be considered. The most common one people worry about is storing public data or device data that transmitted to the cloud, which is HTTPS or SSL certifications.
But if you look at the whole ecosystem of your products, right, your whatever solution, which component will be maybe the most fragile or the most vulnerable?
It would be an application layer.
Application layer.
Yes.
That is the one people see and people try to manipulate. Okay. The device is always a device, and the device servers are always at the backstage, so it doesn't visible.
So if you look at the device itself, they have this authentication process, which is very well secured. In the connectivity layer, it's all standardized. It's already been standardized by the standard bodies. So it's very well secured too. Anything in the cloud, the service provider who provide the service is very well secured. Otherwise, they cannot be in that particular business. The only problem is when the user develop an applications. That application is the weakest point, because sometimes you can remember one or two passwords, but you can't remember how you manage 10,000 cameras, for example, with different passwords. Sometimes that's where the weakest point is, and people will mostly likely to attempt and hack into the system through that kind of user password. And once they enter that, that's it. You might be lost all your data.
All right. Okay, so we spoke about career path in the ecosystem earlier. So this is more about startups. So our friend here is asking, what should be the basic roadmap for anyone who is keen on building IoT solutions from a startup and then all the way to commercializing the product? So this is probably for people who want to launch their own startup with a solution, with the idea of commercializing it. What will be the roadmap?
Dr. Mazlan, you want to take it up?
Okay lah, Pak Ma already not a startup. Wait, okay.
I mean, this is a very big question, Dr. Mazlan.
create IoT, maybe a startup, maybe probably
just, the first 3 steps that they should look at. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
I keep on telling you, IoT is a big world by itself, and you're asking me to define it in a 3-step. Maybe my 20 years experience.
Let them go later and Google for more info. See? I mean, we just have to point them in the right directions, right? Yeah.
I'll do that. So now we are talking about building an IoT solutions. We just focus our discussion there. I mean, our comment there. Building an IoT solution. So that means you want to build something that you wanted to that the world would call it as IoT, and you want to commercialize it. So that means you must have a base element of 3 elements. That is a data entry, data collection points. It can be a sensor, can be mobile apps, can be your mobile phone or whatever, things that collect data. Then a medium of the data will be transported into a server, which will be kept and presented to your potential client, which willing to depart X amount of money to you. So this is what IoT commercialization is about. So if you, let's say, for example, I want to put a weather monitoring solution all over Malaysia. So one weather station I buy from XYZ company for 2,000 ringgit, and I need about 10,000 weather stations all over the country to provide weather data to Dr. Mazlan so that he can avoid traffic jam. So now whether Dr. Mazlan will pay for it or not. So that's the fundamental question for the particular data, and how much is going to cost you to set up the whole hardware to collect the sensory points and the servers to manage it and to provide that particular information to Dr. Mazlan, which the fundamental question that normally I ask myself 1,000 times: will Dr. Mazlan pay for that information or not? So then that's the base question. So if you can find that, if you can answer that question, the other solve is the other roadmaps are easy to achieve. And after I do that, Dr. Mazlan will say, Padma, I can get it from my weather.com. Why I need to pay you? Then gone.
Okay, so I mean, like in my ecosystem, right? I mean, I run a creative agency. We build apps for clients and all that. So that's the way we do it, right? When a client comes to us and say, we want this, can you build it for us? And then we ask how much money you have, and then we build it for them, right? As compared to a lot of the startups that launch their own services, mostly SaaS, and then they open it up for subscription and all that. So in the IoT ecosystem, are there solutions like that where they invest money upfront and set up the infrastructure and set up the system, and then maybe monetize it by subscription or users? Or is it all things that are custom designed for a client? So if somebody's paying for a certain solution, then you build it from scratch. Which is more popular in the ecosystem right now?
That's what we do initially when we started off our business. We build our own product. So from this product, we build and we offer this to the end users. So we have several products, and one of the core products that we have building now is our own platform. It's the middleware, which now should be offered to the end users, where they can subscribe that on the cloud basis, or they can put now on the premise. So previously we don't provide that on premise, but there's a lot of requirements now that we provide that on premise. But of course, having a platform alone, it doesn't solve a problem. So problems need to be solved. So we now we are seeing a lot more customers are asking for how to solve their own the problem that they're facing. So it becomes end-to-end solutions. So no longer you're providing point solutions or providing one particular solution, because one solutions that you build, not necessarily it will cater or solve this customer's problem. It's always a custom build. I found out a lot of customers out there needs to be a custom build. So I think you can vouch for Padma, because every time when we ask him, so he needs to custom build another solutions because of this customer's requirement. So once you have that, then of course even the backend system needs to be customized too. Backend means their workflow process had to be according to their own workflow. So it's custom built. Not only the device side needs to be custom built, but also on the application side needs to be custom built. So this is the trend that we are seeing now. Unless there is what we call that, a very perfect applications where you have one applications that can solve all the problems, which we can't. We don't see that now. So it must be custom built now.
Right. Padma, your experience on this?
Yeah, I'll try to explain the second part of the question, whether is customers willing to go for buying upfront or paying a subscription. Because of so many free services we've been enjoying, starting from our Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever, and these particular users are also our customers. So what they expect is it to be free. So not paying upfront or subscription, they're expecting to be free. So whatever service or whatever customization on the hardware and the platform that Dr. Mazlan mentioned just now, clients are expecting it to be free, magically. So that explanation to them and making them aware that this involves customization, cost of developing, cost of customizing, cost of maintaining, and so on and so forth. So the initial cost will come so high. So then they will either A, will demote from the investment, B, they will scale down dramatically. I mean, on the first meeting, they'll be talking about 10,000 units, nodes, data points, and then we'll go to 10 units, because of the cost. Third, they would demand for a subscription. So what I learned over the years was, end of the day, the subscription model that's going to be sustained, KPI-based model. That means you sell data. So clients want to pay for that, and they do not want to hear my grandmother's story or Dr. Mazlan's grandmother's story on complication of the developing the solution. They don't want to know that. They don't care whether I'm hosting it in Azure or I'm hosting it in Alibaba. They don't care about it. They just want a solution to be delivered to them, and they're willing to pay for that. Now this comes to biggest hurdle for even for a small company like me. It's become the biggest hurdle is the initial investment. Who going to develop this ecosystem for our client, because client not willing to pay and they've agreed to pay subscription. So whoever the listeners who are thinking to go into the market, these are the challenges that they have to overcome. And Dr. Mazan also might be aware that whenever they ask me for some census, I always tell them I give you free. If can, then can the client commit the quantity, subscription contract, the kind of things. So we also try day in, day out to provide something that is cost effective and a win-win solution.
All right. Okay, and there's a question from audience. What is the impact of the IoT on the healthcare sector?
Okay. One of the impact after the COVID-19, they mentioned that healthcare is going to be one of the biggest sector in IoT lah. I mean, one of the biggest sectors should be growing. I do agree with that, but the healthcare sector maybe is quite a little bit complicated solutions. Unless you are in a different, not necessarily IoT. I can see IoT devices, for example, you can have a wearable device where you can monitor people from remote and all that. And this device is not many devices like this. Wearable device is, what do you call that, medical grade. So in order for you to develop a medical grade device, it is quite a very tedious, long cycle to do this. And I haven't seen in Malaysia that really go and have this medical device which is medical grade. What you can see now is the nearest is like Apple. So, but Apple is a very big company to do that. They can build this kind of solutions. So what we are seeing in the healthcare sector, most likely in IoT, where you are monitoring the assets of the equipment, where they are, and then you might try to ease the people when they are actually trying to get medical attention and all that. You might even have robots, for example, that can assist you in delivering medical and also cleaning the disinfectant the place and all that. So that is where not necessarily IoT, but maybe the robots will be able to do that. So that is where the healthcare sector, what we are seeing now. But on the consumer side of the IoT healthcare sector is quite challenging area now. Yeah.
But do you know of any Malaysian companies that are doing any R&D in this space, in the healthcare space?
There's a lot of research work, maybe in the universities and all that, but I haven't seen one that goes into really real commercial product yet.
Nothing commercial yet.
Yeah.
How was it, Mr. Padma? Do you know of any interesting projects in this space?
I do have a product in medical line, and it's been used in Pantai, KPJ, and also all the KKM hospitals. And we're holding quite substantial market share on that particular product in Malaysia and in abroad. So when COVID happens, our order books are always there for healthcare sector. Okay, so when COVID happens, we thought our order books will go up. Okay, surprisingly, it didn't go up, and some of the contract was cancelled. Okay, we are in medical bio. We're not in the bio, but we're in the engineering element. So medical got two biggest elements. One is the bio element, and another one is the engineering element. The bio element, like what Dr. Mazdan mentioned, your devices have to be MD, medical certified, medical device certified, and the kind of things. Engineering element is lesser strain on the requirements. So we have a product on medical engineering. When we try to understand why our contracts has been cancelled, our POs has been hold and everything, we found out that post-COVID or during the COVID MCO period, people didn't go out. So the accidents was less, emergency was not packed up, ICU was COVID patients, ward was empty because people are eating at home and nobody getting heart attack and so forth. So doctors are getting more relaxed. So post-COVID element changed dynamically in healthcare sector. Things that Dr. Mazlan mentioned, like the robots or remote patient monitoring, the kind of things, will come into the play, but it will be changing dramatically because Malaysia, we depend on health tourism a lot because our local medical bill is paid by either the insurance card and the government sectors are there's no revenue stream for governments from medical sector, but only private having a revenue stream, and health tourism is one of the revenue stream, and COVID put a full stop to it. So the IoT in healthcare, there is a vacuum, but it's been reduced. In my view, it's been reduced, and the challenges are now more.
All right. So moving from that, another general picture. I mean, when you talk about healthcare, of course, it's a lot related to KKM and their vision as well. But how would you say generally, right? What do you think about the government support for the IoT sector? I mean, I know the government talks a lot about IoT and IR 4.0 and automation and all, but in terms of actual execution, like what kind of initiative that's been implemented and how has that contributed to your ecosystem?
We have seen, I think since 2014, we have seen this national IoT strategic framework that which launched in 2014. But many of these initiatives was nearly never really took off. So I think the main problem at that time is that no champion is taking that framework. After a while it just disappeared. But then again, we see that there's new interest picks up again when there are so many talks about the smart cities. People talking about these big implementations, how to gather data from all this smart city. But yet we can see that this slow execution. Again, in 2018, we are seeing this new interest again after the launch of this industry forward. Right? I think you know about that because IoT is one of the fundamental core technology before you even make your AI interpretation, big data analytics. You need to gather the data. So IoT is there. And again, last year we see another big interest in IoT when 5G, initiatives is being rekindled that IoT interest again. So IoT is being pushed by many agencies, many ministries. So we are seeing like MITI is pushing for industry forward. MCMC is pushing the 5G and other IoT networks. You see that a lot of mostly on IoT innovation, a lot of innovation roadmap, and KPKT on smart cities. MDEC is doing digital transformation. And now we are seeing Penjana with the NTIS, the National Technology Innovation Sandbox and all that, will create another platform for IoT to come in place. I think it's good because I think it needs push from various industries because we don't want to see that IoT to be at one ministry or whatever, because IoT is an enabler. It goes across all sectors, all ministries, all agencies. So it requires, that's a fundamental building block for you to make your AI more interesting or to gather more insights. So in a way, we hope that this push on IoT still, there's no way, there must be a project basis for us to push this forward. It just cannot be like framework or blueprint or whatever anymore. But I hope the current one, that what the government have allocated budget for Penjana, from Cradle, from Magic and all that, so that will increase the penetration of IoT.
All right. Okay. And we have another question, which I think will be very relevant to Mr. Padma. How about 5G, and how far are we with 5G in Malaysia being a necessary component? I've been hearing about the 5G implementations in the last 2 years. Of course, now with the COVID thing and all, maybe there's a slowdown in that. But anything that you can share with us?
Apologize, you're asking the wrong person. My inner circle knows that I'm against 5G for IoT at the moment in Malaysia. Right. I did went to Shanghai last year to talk about it and to learn about it and so forth. So I know what 5G is, I know the technology capability. But if you talk about in the context of 5G in Malaysia, or you want to make money out of 5G in Malaysia, it won't happen until end of next year. And I'm not going to invest any single cent until end of this year. So reason being that there's so many things on the macro level need to be ironed out for 5G to be commercially rolled out in Malaysia.
Okay.
And the most closest thing you're going to get from 5G is high-speed mobile phone. I mean, now you can stream your YouTube video, 1 hour video in 2 minutes. But my friend, you're still going to sit there for 1 hour to watch the 1 hour video. So,
Yeah.
so even if it's going to stream faster to your phone, nothing much you can do. So 5G hardware, 5G hardware, 5G routers, 5G gateways are damn expensive. Okay, a 5G modem will set you back nearly 2,000 ringgit. Don't talk about the coverage. Okay, telco to set up a 5G coverage going to be very expensive. Um, we are not sorted out that yet, but we are on the direction. The macro level have to be sorted out before the micro level for us people in our level to make some money out of it. But now we
Understood.
can, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So people can do a lot of magic shows like they put up a 5G greenhouse monitoring system in Langkawi, in a container where they monitor the greenhouse. I don't know why. You can do it with 2G also. I don't know why you need 5G. Or you want to do a remote surgery from Germany to Korea. Yeah, you can do with 5G, but who want to sit on the bed now to get your heart open with a 5G connection? When your underground undersea cable got disconnected in case of any emergency. So a lot of other issues need to be taken into consideration before 5G can be commercially day-to-day used. So don't. I mean, my suggestion. I won't be focusing on that so far. Let the big
So,
players spend their monies and let the marketing companies do the seminars.
so is the cost one of the biggest reason why you see that a lot of the telcos are still kind of taking a long time to get into 5G, or is that the technology itself has some issues?
No, technology itself beautiful. It works, but densification of towers needed. Each tower need to be upgraded with 5G base stations. That's going to cause a bomb. Licensing issues. Only three providers are there: Huawei, Ericsson, and Nokia, and we are more onto Huawei. And then the cost of upgrading all the base station going to be expensive. We haven't finished upgrading all our base station to 4G yet. Just remember that, huh? We haven't finished upgrading our base station to 4G, and we are dreaming on 5G. Good luck.
I was just talking to Dr. Mazlan about that earlier about how during the MCO, a lot
Again,
of people
again, I'm
couldn't
the
get
wrong person
connected.
to ask about 5G. I got a very negative opinion
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I mean, even now, many parts of Klang Valley, we don't even have full 4G coverage. People can't even get onto Zoom calls and all that. I think our basic infrastructure still needs a lot of work, I guess, before we talk
And
about
and you're talking about
5G.
you're talking about replacing that with 5G. I mean, go to all the base
Mm.
stations, change another hardware.
Actually, now something just popped in my head, right? What do you guys think about WiMAX technology? Many years ago we had WiMAX, and there was so much of hope and promise on WiMAX. Actually, one of the companies I used to work for were installing private WiMAX. So it was something like LoRa, right? They were setting up WiMAX antennas for like private clients and all that before the public license and all was issued. What do you think about that? What happened to WiMAX?
Dr. Basra?
I think WiMAX, the days of WiMAX might be already over because the days when WiMAX was the LTE, that's the days when either which one that the standard is going to be adopted in Malaysia, for example. But since WiMAX have a very slow in terms of their Windows, they didn't take that Windows opportunity. You don't see so many devices out there to support them. The ecosystem is not there. So finally, even Intel also stopped supporting WiMAX. So that's when you can see the WiMAX implementation is very limited. So what the current infrastructure on LTE and all that can already supported what WiMAX can do now. So that's one of the things that we don't see so much about WiMAX. But again, I think I have to add about that situation about this 5G and IoT applications. IoT application, you can see there's so many IoT applications which require different kind of characteristics in terms of whether it's delay tolerant or not, whether latency is very important or not. So the 5G, the IoT in 5G requires the latency to be very small, so 1 millisecond or more. So unless you are in that area, you are proposing that kind of solutions which require real time, then only IoT come in place. Otherwise, all the applications that we have now can be supported with the current 3G, 4G network. And of course, now we are seeing the LoRa, the NB-IoT, the Sigfox. So these are the current technologies which can be supported. So it's not an issue. We can't wait for 5G to roll out our IoT. Don't have to wait for that. The current technology now can support it.
Okay. All right. So I think now we are almost getting to our 1 hour mark. So I think to summarize the discussion we had today, maybe we can end with more of an advice. What would you guys advise our local, makers and developers? What do you want them to focus on in order to be more, I would say, more useful towards this IoT ecosystem? What would your advice be?
Okay, let me say a little bit here. When we say our IoT ecosystem, then we should start to think about growing and supporting locally lah. And don't talk about everything that you want to buy is everything from overseas and all that. So you must start to think about supporting the local ecosystem. That's very important because you might not have the technology now. Okay, then later when you buy the technologies from overseas, you can do a technology displacement. And you build your own R&D, you can displace it later. So from 10% to 100%, you can displace the whole technology. That's what being done by our friend here also. So he's displacing a lot of technologies from overseas. So then we also should really support this local system using the local platform. Only then we can see the whole ecosystem in Malaysia help each other to grow. Because in IoT, you can't go out and provide your own solutions end to end. You need to depend a lot in all the ecosystem players, from chipset, module players, device players, IoT players, platform players, big data players, and also the system integrator. All of them should be within our own ecosystem because we need to support each other. So, but of course, the end of the day, we need to be very competitive to compare to the rest of overseas.
Mr. Padma, any views on that? What would your advice be?
Again, as I told you guys just now, that IoT consists of a lot of elements, and one fella cannot champion all of them. Just find your vertical which you want to focus on and team up with other resources, and or build the resources to deliver a solution. There, particularly in Malaysia, there is a lot of vacuum. There's a lot of vacuums that are available, which can be converted into revenue stream. So focus on that, then it should be okay.
All right. Okay, so that was amazing from both of you, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today. But before we end, I just want to do a few shout outs. Actually, I mean, JomHack, we got into IoT a few years ago because we ran 2 IoT hackathons to introduce LoRa technology in Malaysia. Of course, a hackathon is in the very early stage. It's education. It's just to expose people to a new technology and get them excited about it, right? I mean, we're not going to teach something where people can immediately develop commercial products. But I think the hackathons were very interesting. What impressed me most was a lot of the local developers knew about what they wanted, but it's just that they didn't have access to it. Like they didn't have access to the LoRa modules and certain tools that we brought in, and they were happy that they got a chance to play with it and learn this new technology. I think in terms of that, I was happy that we were able to be part of that. The other thing is we actually have another IoT hackathon coming up in the retail space, smart retail space. So that should be announced soon. I think hopefully by next week I'll be announcing the hackathon. We just completed one hackathon in the PropTech scene. So it's nice to be able to do another IoT hackathon because personally I like to see people build things, right? Because since I was young, I like to tinker with things and build devices and gadgets. So it's always cool to have an IoT hackathon where people come and build some cool ideas, and hopefully I'll get to see some very interesting stuff. And hopefully you guys will also be there if you want to be involved in the event. So those informations will be shared soon. So if you want to learn more, you can always go to jomhack.com or join our mailing list. As displayed below, you can see bit.ly /join JomHack. So once you're on our JomHack mailing list, then any events or any updates that we can do, you will receive it in your email. Another thing is we're actually organizing a coding bootcamp as well, JavaScript coding, where you can learn the basics of JavaScript in 3 days. We have a very experienced trainer who will be conducting this event in September. So you guys can check that out as well, JavaScript in 3days.ptix.com. Very affordable cost. It's a very introduction program, but I mean, if you have a basic in programming, even better, just to learn a new coding language. So you can always check this out on our social media. You can always follow JomHack on all our social media platforms, and all our programs and initiatives are always shared there. So hopefully you guys can be part of that. And with that, I will like to end this session by thanking both of our guests again, Dr. Mazlan and Mr. Mupadma. Great sharing, and I'm sure our audience have learned a lot today by just listening to both of you just for the space of 1 hour. And I hope to do more of this kind of sessions so that we can educate more people on the ecosystem and set people on the right path so that we can grow the ecosystem as well. So thank you so much for being with us.